Well, nobody that goes to war ever comes back the same person that they were when they left. I went to war and I was a innocent kid that grew up on a farm and lived in a small town. I was naive, I was innocent. I went to war and I saw that life was not the way it was when I grew up. I thought the whole world was the same way that I grew up. It wasn't that way. We live in a very cruel, sometimes evil world. And when the farm boy goes to war and sees this happen, it changes the man. We don't come back the same. I think that we went into Vietnam without a complete understanding of the culture that we were dealing with. I think we were a bit naive about what we were going to be up against. We were on a political mission and didn't really accomplish that mission. I see it as a nation, it was a huge tragedy. It was a horrible tragedy. It was a defeat for our nation. When they sent us to Vietnam, they sent several of us in my specialty at the same time. And we got there and the commander at the post said, "What are you guys doing here? We don't need you. Why did they send you here?" So they put us in different jobs. One guy was a mail clerk and one guy was something else. I was fortunate in that they did put me in that job, and they gave me a top secret cryptographic clearance, and I worked in that facility. But I think there were 5 of them that complained. They wrote to their congressman, and about a month or 2 later, they got orders to go to the Mekong Delta. And you do not want to go to the Mekong Delta at that time. My guess, I would be really surprised that any of those men made it back, because the Mekong Delta was the worst place to go. That shook me up, because it was like, they were punishing them for complaining about something that was really wrong. So, and they were friends of mine, and I never saw them again. One of the things that upset me about, and it was a real shock to me, I didn't think that anything like this was possible. I didn't see it, but I heard it. Our communication center was located in the hospital compound, and the reason for that was that they didn't want it to get shelled, and typically the enemy didn't shell the hospital compounds. We would get to see the helicopters take off, and they would fly over the mountain, and sometimes they would come back without having gone very far. And the rumor was that they would actually take some of the Viet Cong people that they were treating in the hospital and fly them up over the mountain on the pretext that they were taking them to another hospital, another treatment facility. And then they would come back and claim that they had jumped out. This was pretty upsetting, because I didn't think that anybody could be like that. And of course we were told that they jumped out in a way that, oh yeah, they jumped out, yeah, right. That was upsetting. There were stories about some of the Vietnamese that became very, very desperate, and they would literally take their children and push them in front of a military vehicle, and then they would get a few $100s compensation. And sometimes I think they were desperate enough that to lose one child in order to be able to take care of their other children was justifiable. It was interesting in that when I left Vietnam, I had no idea what was going on in this country. I had heard no news whatsoever. The military did a very good job of of not telling us what was going on, and I didn't hear it from my family either. I didn't hear that there was loud, vocal, violent protests against the war, and so when I came back, I was, if you want to call it naive, uninformed, whatever. I didn't know. When I flew into Spokane, Washington, and got a taxi, and first thing that happened was the taxi driver started drilling me about the war. And I thought, what's this all about? I had no idea that there was such high emotion about the war. And of course, I came to realize that a lot of people thought that as soldiers we were baby killers. We were over there just killing civilians and doing all kinds of bad stuff. And yes, there were bad things going on. It happens in every war. But there was a huge misperception of what was going on and what the average soldier was doing in Vietnam. The perspective is probably a little bit difficult because we're many years past the Vietnam War and we've had a lot of time to analyze it, and we haven't had a lot of time to analyze Iraq. We haven't seen the end result of Iraq, but there are definitely some interesting parallels. The Vietnam War, we saw a lot of people who were very opposed to it and very adamantly opposed to it, violently opposed to it, where the response to the Iraq War is much more measured, and I think even in some ways compartmentalized, because people, while they may be very, very opposed to the war, they at the same time they want very much to be supportive of the troops that we're sending to Iraq. Well, World War II was a much different situation. We were actually attacked on our shores, and that's a much different situation. Both in Vietnam, we were not attacked on our shores. Afghanistan, yes, we were attacked in New York, and absolutely we should have reacted. Iraq, I think history will judge. I'm not sure. I think history may judge harshly. I don't know. You know, it's a difficult situation because you look at Saddam Hussein, and he was killing people by the thousands, and it was what do you do? I mean, how do you react to that? How do you respond to that? Was it justified? I don't know. I'm glad I didn't have to make the decision.